the latest episode of Mystery Unsolved. I am, of course, your host, Justin Bienvenu. And tonight, just like any other night that I do this, we are looking into a unsolved case, of course. And tonight, maybe a little different, but before I tell you the topic, disappearances have happened many times throughout the world, and, well, this case, no exception. As you can see, I was stalling so I could play that music. The ever notorious Glenn Miller, a big band performer back in the day, 30s and 40s to be exact. But why did I play that classic hit in the mood? Well, to put us in the mood, because tonight's episode is the disappearance of Glenn Miller. So, obviously, I don't expect every single person or anybody that watches to know who the hell Glenn Miller is. He was a big band performer in the 30s and 40s, very, very huge. He was Elvis Presley and Michael Jackson before Elvis Presley and Michael Jackson, to put it so in terms of easily to be easily understood. Elton Glenn Miller was born on March 1st, 1904. He disappeared on December 15th, 1944. He was an American big band trombonist, arranger, composer, and band leader in the swing era, as I just said. He was the best-selling recording artist from 1939 to 1942, leading one of the best-known big bands. Miller's recordings include In the Mood, which I just played for you, Moonlight Serenade, Pennsylvania 65000, Chattanooga Choo Choo, who can forget the classic Chattanooga Choo Choo, A String of Pearls, At Last, I've Got a Gal in Kalamazoo, which is still At Last, American Patrol, Tuxedo Junction, Elmer's Tune, and Little Brown Jug and Anvil Chorus. In just 4 years, Miller scored 16 number one records and 69 top 10 hits, more than Elvis Presley, 38, and the Beatles, 33, did in their careers. Yeah, he's that guy. He also had a military career. He was in the Air Force in World War II. In 1942, Miller volunteered to join the U.S. military to entertain troops during World War II, ending up with the U.S. Army Air Forces, excuse me. On December 15th, 1944, while flying to Paris, Miller's aircraft disappeared in bad weather over the English Channel. He was posthumously awarded the Bronze Star Medal. So, you may remember other cases and videos that I've done in the past where people go missing and there's a lot of detail and there's a lot of theories. And in this video, it's exactly the same. Why would you think anything different? They try to get you. But anyway, unfortunately, I did not screen time up my phone to not go out, so I'm probably going to be constantly hitting it. But it's all good. All right. So now that I've given you a little bit of a background on Glenn Miller and who he was and how awesome he was with his music, let us get into his disappearance, shall we? Miller was due to fly Bedford to Paris on December 15th, 1944, to make arrangements to move his entire band there in the near future. His single-engine UC-64 Norseman departed from RAF Twinwood Farm in Clapham, I have no idea where that is, on the skirts of Bedford and disappeared while flying over the English Channel. Two other U.S. military officers were also on board, Lieutenant Colonel Norman Basile and the pilot John Morgan. Still with me here? Great. Miller spent the last night before his disappearance at Milton Ernest Hall near Bedford. His disappearance was not publicized until Christmas Eve 1944, when the Associated Press announced Miller would not be conducting the scheduled BBC broadcast AEF Christmas show the following day. The band's deputy leader, Tech Sergeant Jerry Gray, stood in for him. Okay. So, he went missing December 15th, 1944. They waited pretty much 9 days before they publicly announced that he had disappeared. Can you even imagine that happening today? You couldn't. That's preposterous. That would never happen in today's society. How up to date we are, how alert we are, social media for one. The minute somebody went missing, we would know about it. So the fact that they kept his disappearance concealed for 9 days, that's a miracle's 40 sway right there. Miller left behind his wife and two adopted children. He was he was awarded the Bronze Star, presented to his wife Helen in a ceremony held on March 24, 1945. Now, no disappearance video would be complete without a little conspiracy theories, right? Of course it wouldn't. Anytime people go missing, you gotta add on the conspiracy. All right, and again, you know the deal. I'm gonna read this as it is written. If for any reason I jumble my words or it sounds weird, I'm probably gonna read it again. So that way, if it's confusing to me, it'll probably be confusing to you. And then once I clear it up and it's not confusing to me, it won't be confusing for you. You get it? Okay. I've been doing this how long? You should get the gist by now. All right. Conspiracy theories and other explanations of Miller's death. All right, let's get into this. Numerous unsubstantiated conspiracy theories and hypotheses have been promulgated about Miller's death. Among them are that he was assassinated after Dwight D. Eisenhower sent him on a secret mission to negotiate a peace deal with Nazi Germany, that he died of a heart attack in a brothel after arriving in Paris, and that his aircraft was hit by bombs being jettisoned by Allied bombers returning from an aborted mission in Germany. Holy crap. There's a conspiracy theory over there. There's one over there, and then there's this big juicy one that just gets, boom, dropped right upon us. No pun intended. All right. Before I go further, let's check out these three theories, shall we? Dwight D. Eisenhower, I'm assuming then president? Yes, 44. Then President Dwight D. Eisenhower sent him on a secret mission to negotiate a peace deal with Nazi Germany. I mean, if troops and our own political people didn't want to do that, why the hell would a performer like Glenn Miller? I mean, it's one thing to be cool and to be friends or allies with Germany yourself. But again, like, we're talking about Nazis in the 40s. Like, I don't care who you are. If you're not German and you're not a Nazi, you're not a friend. And that's going to be a hell of a truce to make. Especially for one, sorry to niche, especially for somebody who has no experience in negotiating. So, just a thought there. Second, that he died of a heart attack in a brothel after arriving in Paris. Well, that just sounds a little presumptuous, don't it? I'm not really a fan of that one. Kind of paints him in a bad light. And that his aircraft was hit by bombs being jettisoned by Allied bombers returning from an aborted mission to Germany. Hmm. I mean, I suppose that could be a theory. Did they ever find the plane? I I'm not sure. Let's keep reading. The most likely scenario was that Miller's C-64 Norseman flew into cold weather and experienced computer, computer icing, causing the aircraft to lose power and crash in the cold water. Any survivors would have died of hypothermia within 20 minutes. Oh, okay. So usually when there's conspiracy theories, there's like a bunch of there's a bunch of them. A couple of them are solid, and a couple of them are just like extremely out there. But in this case, all three conspiracy theories seem legitimate, but the most likely scenario of what happened to him kind of takes those theories and says, you know what? They're just theories. This is actually what happened. They, experienced computer icing, causing the aircraft to lose power. So in other words, they were in such a high altitude flying that it got so cold that it just everything froze. Plane went down. It's even colder in the water, I would imagine. If you think it's cold up there, just wait till the plane crashes. And yeah, everyone's freezing to death, pretty much. Awful way to go. In 1956, after seeing the movie biography, The Glenn Miller Story, former RAF navigator, Fred Shaw recalled watching a Norseman crash into the channel after being either hit by a bomb or knocked over by a nearby explosive blast as a fleet of RAF Lancasters, of which he was part, releasing their bombs into the English Channel while returning from an aborted bomb mission. Shaw checked his old logbook and found that that was the same day and time as Miller's flight, the 1 hour discrepancy in the reports being accounted for by the Americans' use of local time versus the RAF's Greenwich time. Miller's flight would have taken him a few miles from that area. An inexperienced pilot could have strayed into that zone in the foggy conditions of that day. Okay, so this guy's saying when him and his party were letting off bombs, he saw that type of plane that Miller was in crash, and it all kind of coincides. Is the timing sort of there, not really, but it kind of sort of like lines up. Okay. In 2017, following a 7-year investigation authorized and encouraged by Glenn Miller at the estate, the Potomac Books imprint of the University of Nebraska Press, by saying that 5 times fast, published a comprehensive book, Glenn Miller Declassified, by historian Dennis M. Sprague. Glenn Miller Archives, with unprecedented access to previously unavailable documents from numerous government agents in the United States and the UK, and gathering thousands of pieces of evidence, the author and contributors exposed key facts concerning Miller's disappearance. Okay, so that was a mouthful. I kind of skipped a sentence because it just kept going into like the where it came from, the source. They established beyond doubt from American and British documents that the Fred Shaw claim was physically impossible. Okay, let us continue and see why. As of December 15, 1944, the day that Glenn Miller disappeared, SHAEF, SHAEF, in all its commands observed British summertime. American and British records clearly document that RAF Lancasters jettisoned bombs in the English Channel between 1 and 1:30 p.m. A flight of American 9th Air Force bombers flying below the overcast reported encountering jettisoned bombs at 1:15. The C-64 with Miller aboard could not have physically arrived at the same time until between 2:45 and 3 p.m. Okay, so to clear this up in case anyone's lost, originally Fred Shaw had said that he had seen the type of plane that Miller was in get hit by one of the bombs that they were sending off, and it crashed into the English Channel. But he wasn't sure of the timing, but thought it added up. This document is stating it's physically impossible. It couldn't have happened because the timing of when the bombs took place and when Miller's plane would have arrived are entirely different. They would have arrived 2 to 3 hours after the bombs already went off because of the time discrepancy. So that kind of makes sense to me. The team also exposed the problematic maintenance history of the C-64, including the carburetor issues. Most importantly, so an inquiry convened January 20th, 1945, found that Miller was not authorized to accept the invitation of Lieutenant Colonel Norman Basile to board the single-engine 8th Air Force Service Command airplane. Miller's travel orders specified a regularly scheduled Air Transport Command VIP C-47 passenger flight. Why are airplanes so like? Why do they have such long titles? My God, it takes me like 10 seconds just to read the entire description of the plane. Excuse me. When the ATC canceled scheduled service December 13th through December 17th due to problematic weather over the continent, an impatient Miller went ahead with Basile without informing his chain of command. Ah. So apparently take, he was supposed to be on a different flight, but the weather made the airline, you know what, you're better off staying here. But he was impatient. He wanted to go, so he went with the Basile guy. The sworn testimony of numerous American and British witnesses established that Miller boarded the airplane and the C-64 departed RAF Twinwood around 1:55 p.m. It is also worth noting that at the time that he got on that plane, those bombs had already gone off that Fred Shaw claimed that hit them. So definitely physically impossible. The 8th Air Force established that without evidence to the contrary, the C-64 went down over the water due to the probability of engine carburetor, that's such a weird word, ice, and or the possibilities of wing ice and pilot spatial disorientation. Ah, the old pilot disorientation. RIP Flight 19. The morning of the flight, officials at the home field RAF Alconbury, God, these words, denied instrument clearance to Basile's pilot, Flight Officer Stuart Morgan. I thought it was John Morgan, who went ahead at Basile's insistence under contact, or visual flight rules. Blah blah blah. So in other words, they went ahead. They said they were issued the warning that the conditions are bad, but do your best. If something happens to you, we're not responsible. It doesn't say that, but it might as well. You know. Then it gives you the coordinates, the altitude, the feet. The pilot would have about 8 seconds to recover the airplane. The 8th Air Force thus determined that a crash was catastrophic and not survivable. Miller was the commanding officer of the Army Air Forces Band, or the American Band of the Allied Expeditionary Forces, as identified on its radio broadcast. He had lobbied for the unit to move from England to France, and SHAEF approved his recommendation. Arrangements for radio broadcasting facilities remained unresolved as of December 12, 1944. Miller's commanding officer, Lieutenant Colonel David Niven, ordered him ahead of the band to help resolve matters before the band, its luggage, and equipment were scheduled to embark on the 3 ATC C-47. So, again, for clarification, in case anyone's lost when they watch this, right now it's pretty much stating that Glenn Miller's lieutenant colonel told him to go ahead. Like, you take the flight before the band. You take. I apologize. Basically, his lieutenant colonel said, you go ahead without the band and the luggage. We'll send them out afterwards. You resolve everything that you need to and get this all sorted out. Due to the poor weather, the band flew safely from England to France on December 18th. Schaaf did not return. Uh, excuse me. Schaaf did not learn that the C-64 was overdue or that Miller was aborted until December 18th. Major Glenn Miller. Oh, he was a major. I did not know that. I like how we're just finding this out right now. Major Glenn Miller had no duties other than being an AAF musical and broadcasting officer assigned to Schaaf, nor was he the victim of foul play. So in other words, they said, he was a guy, he was a performer in the Army, he was on this plane, something happened to the plane, there's no other funny business. He wasn't a part of a secret mission by Eisenhower. There was no foul play, nothing bad happened to him. It was just an unfortunate accident that the plane either crashed, disappeared, and yeah. In 2019, the International Group of Historic Aircraft Recovery, TCAR, I love these abbreviations too, was reported to be investigating Miller's disappearance. So just to go to show you, not only is this an unsolved mystery, an unsolved case, but as of 2019, that's 2 years ago, people, still fresh. They still don't know. They're still not really. They're not really, grasping on to one theory and saying, you know what, let's go with that. Let's call it the case done. Closed case shut. Boom. Nope. 2019, it's still open. We still want to know what happened to Glenn Miller. Why wouldn't we? He was a great performer. All right. So I know there was there's a lot of government jargon and military jargon and stuff, and it was a little bit hard to follow. For that, I apologize. But I think I read it pretty thoroughly. So, what do you think? What do you think happened to Glenn Miller? Do you think the plane crashed and everybody that was in it, including Miller himself, died of hypothermia? Do you think their aircraft just simply disappeared, never to be found again? Or do you think it's something else? Something that perhaps we went over, or something perhaps we didn't go over? Hence the reason that as of 2019, Miller's case is still being investigated, and to this day remains unsolved. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Mystery Unsolved, and, go play some Glenn Miller music if you'd like. I know I'm going to. Until next week, I'd like to tell you the episode for next week, but you know what? I like to keep you surprised now. And also, we're almost getting towards Halloween, so all the more reason for me to keep the topics to myself until the day they come out. So, yeah, this has been Mystery Unsolved, the mysterious disappearance of Glenn Miller. Until next week.